Timer's still going. Look on the timer. Off on your end. Oh, wow. Should be the end of it. Okay. Hit broadcast. Or brand. You're right. Brand. Go there. Brand. I think we're live. Go on down a little bit there, Beth. And hit that chestnut. Number 3. There we go. I think we got that fixed. Our intro kept playing over and over and over for some reason. Technical difficulties. We probably have ghosts in our equipment. Chestnut House in Manchester, Kentucky, and it was originally a coffin maker's house, and originally he would rent out the front room if you had a funeral there for your viewing your coffin. And we've been helping with that property for a couple of months now, and it's pretty active. And the number's there, 502 783 7420. And you can go on a daytime tour. You can rent it out for your team, go and investigate. And they have some openings. So if you guys want to book that and bring your team in, the last couple teams have had some pretty good action there. They had a door. Door was opening on its own. Had some cat balls. I've been there up in the attic. We got what I call the mad gasser. It's like a phantom crop duster type ghost up there. It was pretty weird when it happened, but you want to go? Yeah, there's some other images. It's an really old house. I think it's on the historical registry. It's got I call them dog houses. It's got the 3 dormers on the front there, and then it's got a couple on the side. And they're restoring the house, and all the proceeds from the tours and ghost hunts go back into the house. They're fixing up the house, fixing the roof. They've been doing a lot of work. Eventually, it's going to be a haunted bed and breakfast that you can stay, have dinner, ghost hunt, get up and have breakfast. And then this is our podcast schedule. We're Supernatural Sundays on Sunday night, me and Vinny Voodoo. And then Monday we have Paranormal Talk with EJ. and he has other teams on, and sometimes he talks about investigations that we went on, evidence. The next one is CM's Horror Emporium, and she talks about horror movies and directors, and she has horror video games. Sometimes she'll get on and play video games. She does a lot of creepy horror stories. Some creepy pasta was one of my favorite ones. I think last week she had a whole episode on black-eyed children.
Yeah, I tuned into that one, and we got to talking to. We were talking about that, and then we got talking to some movies and stuff, and super fun every week. Great girls, and they're fun to watch. It's just a good time.
Have you ever had a black-eyed child show up at your house?
No.
Well, they
Can't
usually
say I've experienced that.
They ask if they can come in, but if you get one to come into your house, just don't let them in. Or if you see one hitchhiking and they can see black eyes, just keep going. The next one is, I believe, is #paranormal with Tim and Adam, and people call in with or they get online with their stories, their scary stories. The whole show's about people and their experiences that they've had, and just anybody can get on that one. Just get a hold of him ahead of time. They'll have you on the show. Then we have Positively Paranormal with Star, and she's one of our Reikis, and she sends out positive vibes. She has other sensitives on. I think she had a priest on a while back. He was part of the Warrens team, the Foundation team. She had him on. It was pretty good. And the lighter side of paranormal is Fridays. That's with Erin, and she talks about all the funny stuff that can happen.
That's your good time show.
Yeah. All the jokes and funny stuff that happens while you're out there doing your ghost hunt. Ready for the news? Okay, this next one is a couple guys were out bow hunting, and they encountered what they believe is a Bigfoot. And
when it stopped at that pine right next to us, it stared at us, which seemed like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was staring back for a long time. At that point, I knew it wasn't a bear.
Give me the camera. Oh. Eric, get out, get my boat. Get out. Eric, come here. Come here. Where's my bow? Oh my god. I tripped. Oh my god, I tripped. Oh my god. What was that? I told you that wasn't a freaking bear. What was that? It wasn't a bear. Oh my god, listen.
what do you think about that?
They were definitely excited.
Based on their reaction, I think they really saw something. And the fact that it's shaky and a little blurry leads me to believe it's legit. Because Sasquatch, everybody knows he's blurry. If it's a real video, it's usually blurry. Those guys seem to be pretty shook up with that thing. This next one's another Bigfoot one, really big Bigfoot, and it's you have to see the footage for yourself. See what you guys think. If you think this is legit or not.
The following clip shows extremely close-up footage of what certainly could be a Bigfoot. As we can see, a brownish orange-haired beast walks through a clearing in the woods, caught by the camera of a couple hikers. An exact location was not listed, but the footage truly is convincing. Skeptics immediately tried to debunk the close-up encounter by saying it's just a man in a costume of some sort. But believers quickly clapped back at the claims, saying that it couldn't possibly be a suit because of the height, shoulders, and even its very defined muscle structure. Its leg muscles, back muscles, and glutes are all super defined. If it were a costume, they would not be able to flex and move around like this. Also, taking a look at the...
Okay, so Vinny thinks it could have been an orangutan, but I'll say orangutans walking like this. They got their arms up in the air. So I don't see how it could be an orangutan. It was walking more like upright, like a.
It's got to be a suit. It's got to be.
I don't know. They had a lot of people say
That would be like the best video then that has ever been found, ever been seen.
All I know is that Bigfoot was pretty big. He was pretty big, thick. He was the thick one. That Bigfoot had some back going on. I mean, he was pretty big size. But I don't think it was an orangutan because he didn't have that,
That's how you like them. You like them thick.
Next thing in the news, I can't see it. Okay, so they've been studying Bigfoot for years, and they're trying to get evidence, DNA, the hair samples, anything that they could get DNA out of, which is usually a hair sample.
So what is your explanation for that? Because how have we not found
These are scientists.
hair?
These guys are
caught on a branch, caught on a
That's
tree.
what these guys are doing. They've got hair that they've got off branches. They put these little traps out, look like kookaburras, and they put them on trees, and it grabs the Bigfoot's hair as he runs by, and then they can study it. They've also got these ones that are like a tracker, and when the Bigfoot goes by, it clings onto him like a kookaburra, and they can track him.
Huh.
But this is some scientists that have been studying the DNA, and this is pretty interesting.
Real. Just ask the researchers who captured this video. These images have never been seen until now. The group behind it is known as the Sasquatch Genome Project. A genetic scientist, Dr. Melba Ketchum, led the effort.
We just want people to understand this is a serious study.
The 5-year study cost more than $500,000, all given by businessman Adrian Erickson.
Just people have chosen to they don't want to believe it. They can't find in their minds to believe these things exist.
So the group set out to track what they call the furry people. They say they followed a mother and daughter in Kentucky and captured various images and video. These are photos of massive prints. The video is compelling, but the strongest evidence the group has is DNA it says it's collected. The group says there are thousands of these creatures in the United States, including right here in North Texas. As for the DNA, they say it is like nothing that has been seen before.
This creature does not follow the general rule. What it does do is it's very different. We think it is a human hybrid. That is our theory.
Hybrid, they say, because some of the DNA samples sent to UT Southwestern, New York University, and the North Louisiana Crime Lab came back human, but others did not. They say the science is there, whether you want to accept it or not.
You're not dealing with an animal. You're dealing with something that walks on 2 legs, has children, and obviously through other types of research and audio, they have a language.
All signs, the group says, that Bigfoot is no longer a big myth. In Dallas, Shari Williams, CBS 11 News.
Well, what do you think of that?
I honestly,
genome.
I don't know what to think. I do like the name.
It's that genome project because it's their genetics. They find a DNA that's like there's human DNA and then something else.
A human Bigfoot hybrid.
Yeah. I'm thinking possibly created in a lab by humans or possibly non-humans. Could be alien in origin. Extraterrestrials could be like their pets. They've, these things could be created.
Well, I mean,
Or it could be
if you really dive into the whole alien deal and you look at the Anunnaki aliens, where people believe that they created us as humans.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense they would create other beings too, other creatures and stuff.
And then
If you're into that.
Yeah. The other thing is, they could be like a leftover prehistoric human that just they hide from the man. Because back in the day, humans and Neanderthals used to fight, and they would have wars against each other and fight it out. And the humans pretty much for winning. So if you're a Neanderthal and there's only a few of you left, you're going to learn how to survive somehow. So they go into hiding, figure out ways of hiding from humans. So they think it could be a prehistoric leftover. Because they could have survived ice ages and whatnot.
All that fur.
This week's guest he's from the Bell Witch area down there.
I'm excited.
So I got a few more news clips here that are going to deal with magic, black magic, witchcraft, which follows this week's theme. So this next one takes place in Mexico. Mexico, black magic and witchcraft is a big business in Mexico. They got whole markets set up just to sell other merch and everything. So, Beth, you could roll the clip.
Mexico City, home to 20 million people, most of them Catholics. The church forbids any dealings with witchcraft, saying it's the work of the devil. But for many Mexicans, the allure of magic, both good and evil, is irresistible.
Get this
Believers find the tools of witchcraft at the Sonora Witches Market.
This is Afro-Caribbean.
Anthropologist Anthony Zavaleta has studied the market for 25 years. In every cranny of this maze, brujas, or witch doctors, peddle their cures. It's a market for even the most gruesome wares. Along with goods, the market provides services. In back rooms behind the stalls, nearly anything is possible. Spells can be cast or lifted. Customers can have their spirits cleansed or engage in satanic rites. It's all here. Curses fly, powered by wing of bat and tongue of pig. Witches bind hexes in black ribbon, ready for burial in a human grave. Curses like these are all too familiar to Dr. Zavaleta. As part of his research, Zavaleta has been studying with Alberto Salinas, a healer who's come all the way from Texas. Alberto is here to restock his hex-fighting kit. Belief in witchcraft was just an abstract idea for Dr. Zavaleta, until he had his own life-changing encounter with black magic. Zavaleta was traveling with a...
Okay, what do you think of that?
Creepy back rooms, backside of Mexico,
Big business.
scary stuff happening.
I've eaten cow tongue. It's pretty good, but I've not tried the pig tongue.
We have to say it like they did. The tongue of
Lengua.
pig.
They call it lengua.
The tongue of pig and the ear of bat.
In the bat wing.
Bat wing.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, that was
Big business.
Yeah, a lot of creepy stuff. A whole market's just tied to that. This next one, a lot of people don't know, but there's a whole group of witches in England. And when World War II was going on and Hitler was getting ready to invade, they all went together and had like a prayer meeting, kind of like they all got together and prayed together unifiedly to try to keep Hitler from coming into Britain, and he didn't. He stopped before he got there because they knew they didn't feel like they had the defenses militarily to fight Hitler. So this next video talks about that, and there's one male witch and the rest are all female, but their whole thing was to protect England from the invasion.
But really, you shouldn't be afraid of witches. They are not always evil. In fact, sometimes they can be very good friends to have on your side. The English witches today will tell you that it was they who raised the tempest that drove off the Spanish Armada.
In 1588, King Philip II of Spain, the richest and most powerful monarch in Europe, decided to go to war against England. He sent a great armada of 140 ships to force England back into the Catholic faith. The armada failed, and the survivors fled around the top of Scotland and down along this west coast of Ireland. But they ran into a hurricane deemed to be the worst storm ever to hit these islands in 100 years. 25 of the galleons foundered on the rocks.
It just happened to come by chance, she said, in the very nick of time, driving the Don's warships out into the Atlantic, then back to be smashed in pieces on the vicious rocks of the remote and rugged coasts of Ireland and northern Scotland. Not so long ago, the witches will tell you, they were the force that saved England once again. In 1940, they stayed the hand of Hitler, forcing him to hesitate, immobilized, instead of sending the invincible Nazi armies across the narrow waters to smash the English. Or so Dr. Gerald Gardner, a famous anthropologist, says. Britain's defenses were virtually non-existent. Only a miracle could save England now, or magic. Dr. Gardner tells how the witches gathered in a certain secret place in the New Forest. Oh, did I forget to mention that Dr. Gardner is himself a witch? Well, he is, you know. Anyway, the great magic circle was drawn at dead of night, and various secret rituals were performed. The greatest possible concentration of unseen forces were gathered. The witches raised the great cone of power and slowly directed it toward their tomb. Then they commanded Hitler with these words, "You cannot cross the sea. You cannot come. You cannot come." And he did not come. But why? Dr. Gardner tells us that the witches summoned the mightiest preternatural forces of all. Exactly how it was done is a closely guarded secret of the craft, which the witches call the old religion. But it is common knowledge, which even scientists know, that the great cone of power is an auric emanation, an invisible yet demonstrable cone of force. To gather these most powerful of all unseen forces, the witches used their own life force, and many of them died there in the New Forest when this was done. But don't think Hitler didn't believe in magic. He did indeed. In fact, he was deeply involved in the black arts himself. There was a powerful group of black magicians in Germany called the Thule Society. One of the founder members of this satanic sect also helped to found the Nazi Party. Another close associate of the Fuhrer was General Karl Haushofer, a university professor, an army general, a psychic, and a magician. He was also one of the founders of the Nazi Party, who believed it was their destiny to conquer the world, and that they were to do it with the help of the supernatural powers of darkness with whom they had made contact. Having made this pact, they could only invoke the powers of evil by a magician working through a medium. The magician was Haushofer. The medium they chose was the insane but undeniably psychic Austrian Corporal Adolf Hitler. People who knew Hitler recognized this quality in him instantly. Hermann Rauschning, an anti-Nazi politician and writer who fled to America in 1940, wrote that Hitler was possessed by outside forces, the maniacal forces of which he was only temporarily the vehicle. He said that looking at him was like looking at a bizarre face reflecting an unbalanced mind with a disturbing hidden power. In other words, a man possessed of the devil. Hitler was also obsessed with astrology. It is known that his master astrologer, a man named Ernst Kraft, cast his horoscope, and thus they discovered where and when an attack would be most likely to succeed, according to the influence of the cosmic forces. Naturally, every Nazi adventure was an absolute success. Nothing went wrong. At least not until an astrologer named Louis de Wohl went to Winston Churchill and suggested fighting Hitler with his own weapon, astrology. Churchill agreed, and de Waal was made official astrologer to the British High Command. By casting Hitler's horoscope himself, he got the same information the Germans would base their moves upon, and so knew where and when Hitler would strike. In this way, the astrologer became a master cosmic spy, looking over the Führer's shoulder while he laid his plan. What could be better than to eliminate the Nazis' master astrologer altogether? They turned up a letter written by the good Herr Kraft, which contains certain passages which, taken out of context, seem to be treasonable criticism of the Nazis, even of Hitler himself. So de Waal set off for America with this letter. He showed the seemingly incriminating parts to the American newspapers. Headlines across the country screamed the news that Hitler's chief astrologer had dared to criticize the regime. 2 weeks later, the Nazis' great and invaluable seer was thrown into a concentration camp at Buchenwald. From then on, Hitler completely lost his magic touch. He blindly made his greatest blunder. Deliberately, of his own free will, he invaded the vastness of Russia, and like Napoleon before him, he never recovered. The devil-possessed Nazi leader also used his black magicians to harness the unseen powers of darkness, to jam the radar of Allied bombers when they flew over Germany, to lead them astray. Realizing this, the RAF set up their own psychic warfare department, sending out preternatural power waves to battle the German psychic forces as the guns and planes battled on the material level, and to lure the Luftwaffe raiders into traps where they were cut to pieces by the fighters, waiting to pounce on them with the certain knowledge that they would come.
So, what do you think of the British witches that saved England?
That's pretty crazy.
I think Vincent Price.
Psychic warfare going everywhere.
I think that was like one of the first instances of remote viewing that was ever, because our psychics from England and Winston Churchill was battling Hitler's psychics. They were going back and forth.
Hitler, that bastard.
Yeah, so I thought it was pretty interesting how they went up, and some of them, it was so taxing on them physically that some of them, I think, didn't even make it after it was such a strong thing they were doing.
Oh, yeah, I would say.
So our guest this week is Pat, and he is he's the whole expert on the Bell Witch. So I've got a little snippet on the Bell Witch to go with our witchcraft theme. I want to play that next. It's a little intro, and
then stay tuned. We have
a whole lot because he's going to talk about it.
We'll let him run it. So
Adams, Tennessee. A lot of people down in that area won't even mention her name.
So it's crazy. So I was down there. I'd stop by, and I just try to talk to a couple people. No one would talk to me about it at all.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird.
I work with a lady from there, and she's like, "Oh no, don't even mention it." Yeah.
So yeah, we got Pat going live though. We have him in about 20 minutes, so we're going to keep it rolling until then.
Yeah, we got some more supernatural news and some more stuff on witches.
The legend of the Bell Witch can be traced back to The legend of the Bell Witch can be traced back to 1817. John Bell and his family believed they were under attack from an entity that became known as the Bell Witch. First believed to be a Native American spirit, as one of the Bell family boys had disturbed a native grave, but later Kate Batts from a neighbouring property was named as the Bell Witch. The Bell family were haunted and attacked quite viciously over several years, with the daughter Betsy and John the father perhaps suffering the most. Indeed, John became very ill, and his death was attributed to the paranormal by the state of Tennessee. The movie An American Haunting is based loosely on this legend. Earlier this month, the team paid a visit to Tennessee and to the Bell Witch Cave.
So that was our brief little snippet on Bell Witch, but
just this little sample,
just a little teaser. This next one, It's pretty compelling. I still trying to think they faked it, but this one comes out of Africa, and this is another form of witchcraft, voodoo, which voodoo's big down in New Orleans. You get down to New Orleans, they got Marie Laveau, and they got the Rougarou down there.
Definitely
And,
my favorite.
Yeah, and so this is the origins of voodoo are from Africa. So this is an actual African shaman, and let's just say he's uplifting.
There are other paranormal phenomena which are even documented in the Bible, which defy the forces of gravity. This man, whose name is Ovaku, is an African shaman, and here we can see him preparing himself for a levitation. This will take place as soon as darkness begins to fall. The images which this film has recorded are scarcely to be credited. There are no hidden supports or pulleys to be seen. In spite of this, Ovaku actually rises off the ground, and it seems as though he is floating on a cushion of air. The German commentator cannot believe his eyes. There is no question that this is a trick or an illusion, and he's absolutely convinced that he's witnessing a miraculous event, and that the film is incontrovertible proof that levitation is indeed possible. A second cameraman can now be seen hurrying to the side so that he can get close-up pictures of the fascinating event. Could it be that there are in fact invisible fields of force which this shaman is able to take advantage of? The shaman's breathing has become unusually fast, and his face is contorted with the effort of the undertaking. Could the technique which we are witnessing here be the very same technique which is said to be practiced in India and in Tibet? Ovaku then suddenly drops back down to the ground like a stone. It seems as though the very same field of force which appeared to hold him up in the air has now been totally used up. The shaman is completely exhausted.
The bad?
So I think we know where Chris Angel Mind Freak goes to do his training.
Yeah, I'm not buying that one.
They don't show behind it. Which all the magic tricks I've ever watched, they do stuff behind there, like with curtains. It's kind of dark. And we're thinking there's guys on the teeter-totter, and there's like 5 guys get on there. And
you know how they do that? You know how they do the levitation on curbs and stuff like that? So what it is it's breakaway pants. So they have like a zipper that's Velcroed, right? And they'll wear like black pantyhose. And in the back of the leg is a mold casting of the leg. So it looks like the shape is there in the pants. So they unbuckle that pants, step out, magnets tying their shoes together. That's why their feet stay together, ankle to ankle. And then they just step up, lift themselves up. The cast mold looks like it's 2 legs in there, and it lifts the feet up. And then when he steps back in, flips his buckle back on his pants.
So it's kind of like a strap-on peg leg that jacks him up in the air.
No, he steps it with his own foot. His own leg. His leg, he pulls it out of the pants and steps, but that mold cast holds the leg and the magnet on the 2 shoes click together. So that's why his legs stay perpendicular straight together like this. And when he steps forward, lifts them up. Then when he steps back down, then he puts his pants back in, and the magnet closes the pants.
Kind of leverage.
Yeah, it's him stepping.
Him stepping. This next clip talks about some ladies that they've been in the church most of their life, and they're starting to go away from the church, and they're going into basically, loose term would be witchcraft, different type of, it's not exactly the religion they started out with Christianity, but they're moving away from it. And I don't know if it's a bad thing. It seems like they're trying to help each other, help people and whatnot. It doesn't seem like a bad thing, but they're not construing it as like evil or anything like that, but they're definitely going away from the church.
For most of us, this is how we worship, a tradition that predates us all. This, too, is an ancient art of worshiping, not to God the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but to spirits and deities that span the oceans and date back to pre-slavery days in Africa. Are you, in fact, witches?
Whatever the situation calls for. So if you come to me with pleasantries, you being respectful, you'll get Glinda, the good witch of the suburbs. But if you come at me with negativity and meanness and disrespect, then you'll get Eveline. Your worst nightmare.
They have many names and titles and ranks within their belief system. They are college-educated professional women who've chosen to believe that theirs is a truer example of worship that is inclusive of the genders. It connects them, they say, to their ancestors and fills a need not found in traditional worship, though most of them grew up in the church.
I was raised Christian, all Christians in my family. In fact, my grandfather was a preacher in the South.
I also grew up Christian. I grew up Anglican in the Episcopal Church. The older I got, the more disconnect I felt.
I was raised Baptist. My father is a deacon, my mom a deaconess. I was in church all the time.
These women are part of a sect, Ile Ola Afefe Osa Meji, spiritual temple. They worship and offer prayers to Oshun, a predominant deity.
She's the deity or the Orisha of aesthetics, beauty, sex, sensuality.
There are growing numbers of African American women who have chosen for themselves a new life, leaving the church in search of more meaning in their lives. And yes, it can be called witchcraft. At a recent convention in Baltimore, more than 200 witches gathered, a sisterhood, but their spells are for good, not for evil. In this ritual, the women are preparing an offering to Oshun on behalf of a woman in California who's looking for a mate. The omelet-type dish is sweetened with honey, believed to be a favorite of Oshun. Prayers are said over the offering and for the woman in need. A portion is offered to Eshu, the male counterpart of Oshun, and placed in a secret place beneath the stairs of this Odin home. Using shells, they ask the spirit if she is pleased. 4 shells are tossed to the floor, 2 land up, 2 land down. Balance. The gift is accepted.
She accepts it.
The traditions may seem odd to most, a mystery to some, complex and multi-layered. These daughters of the moon, followers of Oshun, women, powerful, determined, and understanding, say there is nothing to fear. They are here, and they will be here for the foreseeable future. Yes, there are witches among us.
This is something that our ancestors did, and all we're doing is tapping back into it so that we can become our best selves, individually and collectively.
There's so much more to this story than our time will allow, so our conversation continues with these women, where they reveal much more to me. And if you want to watch the extended interview, head to our website, WJZ.com, to watch Behind the Lens. And for even more information, there is a link to the Daughters of the Moon, also at WJZ.com.
What do you think about the ladies there doing the going back to their traditional roots to help with their friend find a mate?
Well, I mean, I think it shows just all the different varieties, different belief systems, different processes through it all. So it's kind of neat to kind of dive in and just see all the diversity in different ways.
It seems to me like they're kind of getting in touch with their heritage too, a little bit. That omelet thing she was making there to help her friend find a mate was pretty intriguing. Then a lot of them grew up in the church too. But I wonder how many of them still practice both. Probably a good percentage. You'd have multiple beliefs, I guess.
Could you? I mean, don't they kind of, do they coincide or do they contradict each other?
There's scientists that believe in evolution who are also devout Christians who go to church every week and pray, but they also believe in evolution. So,
well, a lot of them,
creationists.
A lot of those scientists and stuff that you see, so as in digging in, trying to prove the scientific aspects of it, made them believers in it just from different, different studies and stuff that they bought in. It kind of brought them to faith.
Yeah. There was a big, there was a whole special. I watched it with Bill Nye the Science Guy, and then the Creation Museum creator. They had a whole back and forth discussion. It was a very good discussion, and the creationists believe the world is only 6,000 years old, but scientists are like, no, this stuff's millions of years old. So you kind of have both. You have some scientists who believe in Jesus, but they also believe the world's millions of years old. But then you also have creationists that don't believe the world any older than 6,000 years old. So you got all these different views, and I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong, but it's kind of interesting how the dynamic plays out. You know, because they're like, well, if you're a creationist, you can't believe the world's that old, but some of them do. So,
and if you're call us, tell us your thoughts too on it. Break it down.
There's another clip there. We give you a little sneak peek of it. It's a whole nother thing on voodoo, and watch this. It's like a stirring spoon thing. It's just going around in a bowl. Pretty interesting. In the form of way. I seen a string tied to that stick. Play her again.
Definitely call him bogus on that one.
Yeah, I think he's got a string tied to the stick on that.
It definitely looked like it.
Now this next one, you've heard of water witching, right? Like with dowsing rods and a piece of green willow where they hold it and it's like, and then it pulls down.
No, I haven't. I know what dowsing rods are.
You ever heard of water witching?
No.
So people would use a green piece of willow, and when they're walking around trying to find a water, and it'll bend down, and it'll show them where the water is. This lady, her whole body can find water.
Well, hey, check this out real quick. Cindy's with us on it. She said that she saw a fishing line.
Yeah, I think I did too.
Yep.
Now meet Catherine Brent of Devon, Cornwall, whose physical reaction to water is so strong that she is literally pulled this way and that in the direction of the underground stream she locates for Cornish farmers. Since she discovered her gift 3 years ago, Catherine has located 300 deep boreholes and has been right 98 times in every 100. Today, she is one of Britain's most successful professional water diviners. How does she do it? No one really knows, but scientists say that her body cells are unusually sensitive to physical and chemical changes in the earth. All Catherine knows is that her reactions are so violent that she is sometimes pulled off balance and ends up flat on her face. This from water often more than 200 feet below the ground. Her gift can locate the whole course of an underground stream with uncanny accuracy, but it leaves her exhausted and white-faced.
What do you think of that?
I don't know about that. That was weird.
98 times out of 100, she finds it 200 foot deep. Her whole body is like sensitive to water.
So it just happens to her, or
Just
like
her.
they do? This
Just
is like a
her.
trance they put her in, or
No,
it just happens.
It just happens to her. Period. She's the only one that I've been able to find. I know a lot of people that are water witches, but they use willow. She uses her whole body, throws her off balance. Like you can see her walking around, and it just like throws her off. Another form of witchcraft, possibly. What's this next one? I'm trying to see what it says there. Okay, so everything on Earth is tied in with frequencies, and this is something I've been studying. I think everything, like ringing a bell, you hit it, it gives off frequency, but if you crack the bell, it gives a different frequency. I think with the paranormal, that's how things are able to communicate with us through different dimensions and time because everything has its own distinct frequency, like our voice. And this guy here has a whole nother, he's got a lot of theories on frequencies too.
This world is not what you think it is. Let's talk about frequency, vibration, and cymatics. And if you think you've seen this video before, no you haven't. Take a look at this. On the left was the old standard tuning frequency for the entire world of A432 Hertz. It got changed in the 1930s to what you saw on the right, which is the new standard tuning frequency of A440 Hertz. Take a look again and tell me what you see. The one on the left is beautiful and symmetric. The one on the right is blurry, very distorted, as you can obviously see. Keep this information in mind. Now check this out. That was a combination of a specific frequency at a certain decibel level, and the decibel level plays a very big part of all of this, going so hard that the vibrations were transforming the shape of the actual metal on the car and the glass. And I know some people are going to say that's trick photography, that's not what it's really doing. That's not true. Yes, if you slow it down, you slow the frame rates down, it does look more dramatic when you show it on film, but that's absolutely still taking place. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to visually see through the glass or the metal door into the car. Now here we see it again in nature. These patterns are absolutely everywhere in nature. What happens when we speak? That kind of gives a whole new meaning to the Creator speaking the heavens and the earth into existence. Anyways, check these out. What you saw on the left are actual old stained glass windows, still found in many Tartarian cathedrals that are still standing. What you saw on the right are actual harmonic frequencies, represented visually via cymatics when those notes are played. Take a look at it again. Now, most of us have experienced some sort of miraculous divine healing that could have only come from our Creator. If you haven't experienced it, maybe a family member or a friend has. But what if in the process of creation, He created some things to actually help assist us in not only staying healthy, but facilitating some tangible physical healing as well? Take a look at these organs in this cathedral. Again, these cathedrals are still all over the world. Is it safe to say that perhaps the windows on the outside of those cathedrals represented the frequency in which that cathedral resonated at? What if between these loud organs being played, the resonance of the actual cathedral, the decibel level at which this stuff was played at, what if it shook people's insides and reverberated at such a level that it broke the inconsistencies within their body, all the harmful things that actually end up causing many people their lives in the long run? We see this technology now. They use it for kidney stones.
Okay, so frequencies are around
Definitely interesting.
everywhere. Some stuff I want to do with some vibration equipment. I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there today. Thanks for joining us
Absolutely.
on
Good job,
Father's Day.
guys.
And you know what I think it's time for? I think it's time.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
I'll throw a little more cowbell in there for you.
Cowbell,
Everybody needs
cowbell,
more
cowbell.
This next one is a picture we brought up last week in the child face picture. Vinny thinks it looks like him, and I think it looks like a little kid's face, but it also kind of looks like a stain, I think, reflection. Go ahead. Okay, so I blowed it up a little bit so we can see if it really does look like you, but I still think it could be.
Hold on, play it again.
Well, I got a bigger one.
Okay, do the bigger one. I'm sorry.
I made it a little bigger. I think it looks conspicuously like a stain that's reflected on the other corner of the pew, but it does look like a child's face.
See, I think I just see my goatee because I know I was sitting on the other side of it. Chubby face, roundness was there.
There is a little.
I think it is an enhanced reflection that was shined off of the pew in the light from the camera.
There's a little bit of a Campbell soup.
And it caught me in the side.
Kind of a Campbell soup kid look. The next one is the nun picture that we've showed a couple times from Casey Cemetery. And I've been trying to get a better image of it, but go ahead and play the regular one, and then I'll show I enhanced it a little bit.
Take a look at this!
Okay, now scroll up there, and we'll show my enhanced version of the same picture. We still think it looks like a nun. Go all the way to the top, all the way. Okay,
Yeah, it's so ingrained in me. I'm always going to see it be the nun.
You're going the wrong way. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. A little bit more. A little bit more. You're almost there. Right there. See, it's nun enhanced. Hit that one.
That looks pretty good.
Okay, click it off. I'll talk about it. We'll show it again. I think it looks like a nun when I blowed it up. I took the contrast off a little bit. You can even see her necklace.
Yeah, I'm definitely always going to see it as a nun. That's why I'm so eager. I want to go back. I want to go back there to that same place, and let's just set up a deal. And let's just get as many just snapshots as we can get at that same location, that same spot.
I want to go.
If it happens twice, it's got to be something.
I want to go to Bethlehem Academy, where the nuns actually
Absolutely
worked, lived, and taught kids. Where a couple of them perished. I actually want to go there. Throw it up one more time for everybody and let them get a good look at it and to see what everybody thinks. I think it looks like a nun.
And again, this is Hell's Gate in E-Town. Not on pictures. That is Hell's Gate in E-Town.
Yep. Okay, go back down.
Jennifer says you can definitely see it as a nun.
You got to click back on it to get it to go off. Go back up. Click it. There we go. Now go on back down.
Did you see that? And Jennifer says she definitely sees it as a nun as well.
I do too. Hit this clairvoyant on LiDAR.
Cindy says it's a nun. Look, the census is in. It's there.
I think it's a nun. I think it's a nun. I've got another gentleman on our team he's a clairvoyant. He hears things talking to him. And I was just having a conversation with him. I had him on LiDAR and watch the top of his head. It like disappears and comes back. I haven't seen that on any other person. Most people on LiDAR are solid, but his head blinks off. Go ahead and roll that one. About two more. The little green guy. Right there.
Why it wasn't captured? Maybe I got to do something to capture it. Yeah, the top of your head blinks a little bit. It's kind of weird. Wow.
We think that.
Did
his
he?
Head shuts off.
I mean, did he say that he felt any different, or maybe he was getting one of his communications that he gets maybe when it's happening? I mean, that would be really interesting if you're getting that on film. You know, that's happening on your LiDAR and it's happening, and then all of a sudden he's like, "No, I'm getting this right now."
I might have to try it again to correlate, but his head definitely clicks off.
Definitely worthy of an experiment.
Yeah. And the next one was we were out in the backyard last week, and we think we spotted a UFO.
I think we got a drone or a UFO.
Look at that sucker, there it goes, man. I don't know what it is. It's hauling ass though. I don't know. It's unidentified. There it goes behind the tree. I think it's a UFO.
And then now that was we didn't know what it was. I thought it might have been a drone or something. But there toward the end, it kind of flits around a little bit. It was going straight and kind of bobbles around like maybe hit a gust of wind or something.
I don't know. It looked weird.
Well, without further ado,
Let's get this going. Yeah, definitely.
We want to bring on Pat, and he's our guest this week, our expert on the Bell Witch. And Pat, you're up.
Hey, Pat, how you doing?
Hey, good evening. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent.
Thanks for being patient with us and going through all of our supernatural news. We wanted to bring a lot of the whole theme of witchcraft in this week, kind of lead into your presentation, and so we wanted to get a little information on you. If you want to give us a little background on yourself, and then I'm sure we got a ton of questions for him.
Always got questions.
Okay, well, my name is Pat Fitzhugh. I'm from Nashville. Grew up in West Tennessee, and I've been researching the legend of the Bell Witch from an historical and analytical perspective for 46 years this year. And first became interested in the story when my mother told me about it when I was a child. She was born about probably 2 miles from ground zero over in a place called Cedar Hill. And then after she got older, she moved across the county, but still grew up there in Robertson County. So she knew a lot of people who had told her a lot of Bell Witch stories, as well as a lot of people who were descended from some of the more prominent characters in the Bell Witch story. So, that initially fueled the fascination. And then as I got a little bit older, curiosity set in, namely, how in the hell could this have ever happened? Or how in the heck could a story like this have ever evolved and came to what it was? And then we look now, many years later, and the story is even bigger now. There's new Bell Witch stories come out every day. So, it's been a lifelong research project. I figured I could probably, figure out what happened to start this whole Bell Witch thing. That I could do it probably 6 months or so. But then again, I was a teenager when I began researching it. And, so far, 46 years later, still researching the legend. I've written a couple of books on it. There's one book out there called The Bell Witch, The Full Account. The other one, The Bell Witch Haunting, I took that one out of print when the big book, Full Account, came in. And I try to stay active by not only researching historical parts and different elements of the legend, but also celebrating the legend in the form of having lecture and book signing events where I actually tell the story of the Bell Witch as a storyteller, and sometimes inject my research into that too, just to provide more information in the story. So that's it in a nutshell for me.
That's awesome. So what? I guess I don't want you to go through the whole story or of the Bell Witch, but maybe you could give just touch on it in case anybody that's on or watching isn't really familiar with the Bell Witch. Just kind of kind of how it started and kind of how it's affecting. I know that they say that it's cursed the family and it's followed the family even up till today. So maybe you could just kind of just touch on just a little bit of the history and kind of they can get some info on that.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. The legend of the Bell Witch centers on the family of John Bell of Red River, Tennessee, which was an early settlement about 50 miles northwest of Nashville. And the family endured a series of horrific, terrifying disturbances between the years of 1817 and 1821. These disturbances were mostly at the hands of an unseen entity. The early disturbances, there were a couple of apparitions apparition of a dog, apparition of a bird much larger than an eagle, and of course the story that we all hear about the dead lady hanging from the tree. But the rest of the early manifestations in 1817, early 18, of the Bell Witch were of a poltergeist type nature. In other words, noisy spirit or noisy ghost. And these came in the form of knocking on the walls of their large log home, the sounds of chains being dragged across the floor, sounds of what sounded like rocks even being thrown at the roof of the house. Well, after a while, whatever it was came into the house, and the children in the family complained about having what felt like, sounded like rats gnawing at their bedposts as they tried to go to sleep at night. And then it escalated from there to the point that some of the children, mainly the youngest daughter, Elizabeth, also known as Betsy, would feel her covers being pulled down at night just as she was about to fall asleep. Of course, that would terrify her. She would scream. The parents would come in, light their candles, look all around, and they could not find a culprit. Initially, they thought, hey, it was probably just her older brothers, playing tricks on little sister, trying to scare the daylights out of her. But as time grew on, all of these forces became stronger and stronger and more malevolent. At one point, it became so bad, Betsy woke up in the middle of the night screaming. The parents rushed into her bedroom, and she had welts all over her face where some invisible hand had slapped her. And it was at that point the Bells realized that this was not the older brothers. I mean, sure, I'm sure they would have loved to play tricks, but not anything of this nature. So the family kept enduring these disturbances, and they did not want to tell anybody simply because, number one, they didn't want people to think they were crazy. Another reason, John Bell, the father of the family, was an elder of the Red River Baptist Church. The last thing they wanted the church congregation to know was that there was some type of malevolent entity living in their home. So they remained silent for a very long time and eventually shared it with a couple of people, including the preacher. And a pact was made to investigate and try to find out the source of this entity and these malevolent happenings. And the biggest thing was they all agreed to keep it a secret. Well, within 3 or 4 weeks or months, people were coming from all over southern Kentucky area, northern Tennessee, and even farther away to see what was going on at the Bell Farm. Someone at some point had let the cat out of the bag. And after letting the proverbial cat out of the bag and more people visiting the Bell home to try to make sense of this thing, the more intense it became. The poltergeist type sounds were louder and harder. Betsy was being attacked regularly. They would say she would go into a trance and then would be attacked by this thing. And even the guests would complain about, their bed covers being pulled and other things happening. It seemed as though the more people who came to experience this thing and became fearful of it, the stronger it grew. It seemed to feed off of their fear. And as time went on, this thing developed a voice, starting out with undiscernible whispers, but later culminating in a fully understandable voice. And of course, the magic question was, who are you? Why are you here? And this thing would tell them. Now, keep in mind, we're talking a disembodied voice. This thing would tell them all sorts of stories and send them on wild goose chases to do certain things that would get rid of this presence. Then, when they did so, this thing would come back and speak, saying that they were a bunch of fools, that none of this were true. And it claimed to be a number of things. The spirit of somebody buried in the woods nearby, spirit of somebody looking for a tooth, the spirit of somebody who was killed and who had buried treasure, and they wanted it to be dug up and given to Betsy Bell. Just about any old excuse you can think of. So more and more people kept coming. At one point, one of the preachers sat down and asked this thing in a very sincere manner, why? Why are you really here? What do you want to do to these people? And this voice responded and said that it was there to kill the father, John Bell, and make him die the slowest, most miserable death possible. Well, gee whiz, why would anybody kill John Bell or want to kill him? I don't know. I know there were a couple of cases where he had, one case where he had a property line dispute with a man named Josiah Ford, and another time he had a business sale transaction dispute with a man named Benjamin Batts, who was not the Kate Batts that some people falsely claim was a Bell Witch. But still, nobody could figure out why this thing wanted Mr. Bell dead. Well, about that time, the daughter Betsy, by 1819, she had gotten to 13 years of age and started courting a boy, a local boy named Joshua. And pretty soon, they made it known that they planned to be married. Now, I mean, a lot of people raise their eyebrows, a 13-year-old girl getting married. But back then, such things were not uncommon. So everybody was happy about it except this entity, which some people called Kate because one of the things it claimed to be was one of the neighbors, Kate Batts, who my research has shown had nothing whatsoever to do with it. But at any rate, people called this thing Kate. And Kate was very upset about Betsy being engaged to Joshua. And as that happened, she would scream into Betsy's ear. Some accounts say that even Betsy even was vomiting brass pins, had blood coming out of her ears sometimes. And meanwhile, word continued to spread, and one military leader by the name of Major General Andrew Jackson was said to have visited the Bell home and encountered the Bell Witch entity. Well, everything I've just mentioned in terms of paranormal phenomena only increased, not only with frequency and becoming more frequent, but also with force. However, this entity was good to a couple of people. There was a neighbor named Calvin Johnson, and she said he was the finest man that ever lived. Never gave a reason why, but that was it. The entity was also very good to the mother of the family, Lucy Bell, and reportedly even sang hymns to her when she was sick. Then, around late 1819, John Bell began developing a lot of nervous system symptoms, problems swallowing, facial twitching, other things. And this disembodied voice would keep speaking up, saying that it wanted old Jack, as it called John Bell, to die. And it seemed to take great pleasure in laughing when Mr. Bell had these episodes. His health continued to go down until December 19th, 1820. He fell into a coma and could no longer get out of his bed, couldn't do anything. And then in the morning of December 20th, he passed away with his family by his side, and also the entity known as Kate by his side. The family found a vial of unidentified liquid on the cupboard. Uh, One of the older sons, John Jr., took a whiff of it and said, "Ew, this is horrible." And he decided to pour a couple of drops onto the tongue of the family cat, who had the unlucky misfortune of being in the room at that time. It is said that the cat jumped up in the air, spun around a few times, and was dead by the time it hit the floor. And then Kate spoke up and said, "Yeah, I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, and that fixed him." And then she laughed and laughed and laughed. And it was said that she laughed at John Bell's funeral until the very last mourner left the graveyard. Then things started to improve a little bit, but she had one task left, which was to prevent the engagement of Betsy Bell and her suitor, Joshua. And she constantly hounded and hounded and hounded at Betsy, don't marry Joshua. So finally, Betsy decided in April of 1821 that, given what had happened to her father, allegedly at the hands of this thing called Kate, that if she continued with her plan to marry Joshua, the same thing could happen to him. And she just loved him too much to put him in that type of danger. So they broke it off. And by about June or July of that year, the disturbances that were known as the Bell Witch disturbances ceased. And the entity said it would be back in 7 years, 1828. And according to the stories and the legend, the thing did return in 1828 to John Bell Jr., one of the older sons, not the oldest, but one of the older ones, and the one for which Kate obviously had the most respect. And they had conferences for 3 nights in a row talking about the past, the present, and the future. And Kate also told John Jr. allegedly that those 7 years between 1821 and 1828, that she had been vacationing in the West Indies. She also promised to return 107 years later, which would have been 1935. Whether she returned or not, who knows? Some say she did, some say she didn't. A lot of people say she never left the place. And that is my very short, quick, abbreviated story of the Bell Witch of Tennessee.
Pretty
Wow.
intriguing.
That's wild.
I wonder why she wanted to go after John Bell so bad. Like, it never did really want to just continually harass somebody to the point that's almost like a spiritual attack, to the point where then finally just did him in.
Well, you have 2 major bodies of theory here. One is the paranormal theory, one is the non-paranormal or the natural theory. And, looking at it from a paranormal perspective, why would this entity want John Bell dead? Well, when asked, it said one time that he was a bad man, but did not elaborate as to why it felt that way. And one time when it was asked, why did it want Betsy Bell and Joshua Gardner to break up and never get married? And all it would say was that Betsy would never be happy with Joshua Gardner and that future generations would see it true. Now, exactly what's meant by future generations would see it true, or if an event in a future generation has occurred, we don't know. Now, the other side of the coin, which is what I look at a lot of the time as a researcher, on the non-paranormal theory, the question would go like this: who in the Red River settlement would want John Bell dead or out of the picture? I mentioned that he had a land deal gone bad with Josiah Fort that resulted in Josiah Fort getting kicked out of the church and not coming back until after John Bell had died. Then we had the case of Benjamin Batts, who was a brother-in-law to Kate Batts, the woman that a lot of people seem to think was the Bell Witch. And Benjamin Batts's deal was settled by the church, with John Bell winning the case. You got to remember, a lot of matters back then were settled not in the court system, but by the church. In this case, John Bell was accused of charging too much interest on the sale of a slave. And the crime is called usury. And he was brought in to the church, and they ruled in his favor. Then after that, there was another issue that Benjamin Batts had, and said that John Bell was being contemptuous and just wanted to levy a lot of charges on him. Well, that didn't fly too well either. And that resulted in a legal action by Benjamin Batts to bring John Bell into court to answer these charges. The court found against Mr. Bell, but there's no record of what, if any, punishment he received. But we do know from the church records that when John Bell went back to the church, he was excommunicated, in other words, kicked out. And the church records make it pretty clear that it was simply because he is was a figurehead or, an elder of the church. And it was great embarrassment for an elder of the church to be found guilty in a court of law. Now, of course, also as a researcher, I'm asking, how do we know that was the real reason? Could it be that the other elders of the church decided that since there were these reports of this malevolent entity in Mr. Bell's home, that they would kick him out because of all that? I mean, this is 125 years after the Salem witch trial and also at the Buckle of the Bible Belt. I mean, there was witch fever galore. Anything back then that people thought was malevolent and which they could not understand or figure out, they would automatically blame it on witchcraft. And even Andrew Jackson, when he allegedly visited the farm, he was the one who allegedly, we're not sure of it, but we think he's the one that coined the phrase Bell Witch. Because back then, malevolent, strong, and overwhelming things were often attributed to witchcraft. But he had allegedly said that he would have rather fought the British in New Orleans than had to fight Old Bell's witch. So that's that part. So back to the John Bell question, who at Red River would want John Bell dead? I can think of somebody and provide a lot of reasons why and a lot of documentation exactly why this person most likely wanted Bell at least out of the picture. But that's pretty much way beyond the scope and the time frame for this interview. But I'm going to be making a lot bigger deal of it probably over the next couple of years, along with some other theories. So bottom line, we don't know for sure who or what wanted John Bell dead or why.
So in your research and studying and everything, you've been to a lot of these sites and a lot of the locations, the house, the farmyard,
the cave,
right?
I have been to all of the major sites there. Some of them, it has been years and years. Like when I first, did the books. They all have revised editions now, but the original editions of the books, first printing, way long ago, I had visited the actual house site, the original graveyard, and all of that in preparation for the book and getting photos. I visited the museum a lot up there, which is on the old John Bell farm, as well as the whoa, I don't know if you can hear it, but we got thunder and lightning like crazy here in Nashville. Maybe I shouldn't have said John Bell farm, but at any rate, yeah, what do you dig? So I didn't do that right. I'm too hoarse tonight. So Bellwood Cemetery, which has some of the bells buried in it, but not the original Bell Cemetery. And let me make a clarification here. When I mentioned the Adams Museum being on the John Bell farm, I mean that it, as well as Bellwood Cemetery and a lot of other properties up there, are on what was once the John Bell farm. That farm has been subdivided many times. There's also the location, of course, called the Bellwitch Cave. I've been there as well. So, been to a lot of places there. The site of the Red River Baptist Church during John Bell's years. A lot of places there in the area. And the good thing is almost all of them you could photograph from the road, which makes it a little bit easier.
So on that, you think so? All the places you've been and seen there, and in your investigations and stuff. I mean, I got to ask: you ever see anything? Anything kind of creep you out?
Oh, I've I'm always having things up there creep me out. Things that I don't, readily understand. Um, Two of the bigger things, in my opinion, that happened to me, one was where years ago, and this was many years ago, I was working on a video project for the Bell Witch, which, by the way, I never finished, even though I still have the footage. And I was shooting some of what we call B-roll and shooting some rabbits playing in a field next to the road. When I got home and started going through all of the filming, I noticed that the field was there when I played it back, but there were no rabbits in it anymore. You couldn't see these three little rabbits playing. And they were pretty well zoomed in as well when I made the video. And what's interesting about that is, according to the legend and all the old stories and all that, the Bell Witch entity often manifested in the form of a rabbit. And had a couple of other things up there, but I think
Because that was some of the thought processors. She was like a shapeshifter, or
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask him about. What he knew about her being a shapeshifter. But
yeah,
like
a shape. There is the shapeshifter. When you start looking at these animals, the original apparition, according to one version of the legend, was something John Bell saw that had the head of a rabbit or body of a dog, something like that. I don't know. I'm burning up right now. We don't have any air conditioning in the house. But this an initial figure that John Bell saw, actually, it was the head of a rabbit, body of a dog. And then there was this bird larger than an eagle, or it was described by Drury Bell, one of the sons, as being much larger than an eagle. Then we have
and even as the family, as they've gone through, even recent, they've all claimed that they've seen these animals, that these like animals kind of visit them and stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. There have been several. There were several animal-like apparitions throughout the old original legend and those stories. And like I say, most often a rabbit. There was also an account where one of the slaves who lived there had a wife who worked on the Gunn family farm, which was across the road and up a little bit from the Bell farm. He would go over to the Gunn farm in the evenings and visit with his wife. And he would take this well beaten path through the woods. One of the Bell Witch stories is that he encountered a big black dog with what looked like a spearhead on the back of its tail. And it got in his way, and he could not get through. Every time he tried to go around it, it would get in front of him and growl as though it was about to attack him. Well, he finally tried it again another night. He brought his axe with him. And sure enough, this big old dog with a big old diamond shaped head showed up to him. And he took his axe and hit that dog right in the head, split its head in half. Then he thought he'd killed it, and he was free to go. Went to see his wife, and then another time he was coming through there at night to go see his wife, and there was that same darn dog again, except this time it had two heads as a symbolism of him splitting the dog's head in half. And, all these things I'm telling you, these different apparitions and things, these all just come from stories and legends and folklore over time. That you can prove a lot about the people that existed, the places and all that. But, we can't prove that this guy saw a two-headed dog. We can't prove that some people saw some eye figures or ghostly figures dancing at the edge of the woods. There's a lot of things we can't just, absolutely prove, but they're also still a very big part of the story. Shapeshifter is one thing. Talking with some people who are of Native American descent, several of those told me that they thought this thing was a trickster spirit in the Native American world. The trickster was
Like a
very
demigod.
similar. Yeah, similar to a shapeshifter, but not the most benevolent entity either. It could be malevolent. It could be very mean, as a matter of fact. So, shapeshifter has, come up too when talking about the animalistic apparitions of the so-called Bell Witch entity.
I think that's what's just really crazy to me, just looking over the whole story and stuff, is just how it could just is still affecting people. You know, that family generations later and stuff. I believe there's even I'm not sure if it was a documentary or a mini movie where I guess the son, one of the descendants now, he has gone back, and they filmed him going back because he wants to try to stop this curse on the family or kind of clear the family from this. And he had went out, and then just a lot of weird stuff was happening to him and his camera crew that was out there, and they'd even talked about seeing the rabbit and the dog and a wolf out in these woods because they actually stayed on the property and they camped out there for like a week, and they were having
Yep.
a lot of those things happen to them while it was there. And it was, really cool little mini series or movie. I'm not sure if it was a movie or a documentary,
It
but
was a
it was really neat.
It was a TV series on A&E, and it was, I believe, it was a fall TV series on A&E called Cursed, the Bell Witch. I was on that, all the episodes, as well as John and Chad. John was the guy, the descendant guy, who wanted to take a trip back and look at the legend, look at his ancestry. And Chad was his buddy, and they both have military backgrounds and backgrounds with investigation. And I think we did all that back in 2015 or so. And, to talk about what's happened with the family ever since then, every time I hear about a curse, I always ask, is it a curse or is it just a coincidence? And with the Bell Witch legend, I had never heard of a curse until the makers of this movie approached me. And the curse seemed to be that the firstborn male memory, or excuse me, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. The firstborn male member of every generation of John Bell's direct descendants would die. Now, if you think about that, have you ever known anybody that didn't die?
Right.
I mean, sure. Sure, that firstborn descendant of such and such generation is going to die, as will the rest of them. Whenever their life expectancy or whatever is gone. So, saying that there's a curse that somebody's going to die, well, we already know they're going to die at some point. Um, so, I didn't see the point about the curse or anything. I'm not saying that there's not a curse. I'm just saying I haven't seen anything that would substantiate it.
So
Um,
it wasn't like maybe like, those first male descendants didn't die at a certain age, or there's no kind of thing. It just
no, there's no
is what you're saying
27
on that.
club.
It's kind of natural.
Yeah, there's no 27 club at the you know for the Bell family. Um, there have been some descendants who have died. I guess you would say violent. Well, that's not the word, but painful deaths. Or tragic deaths. But not all descendants and not all firstborn descendants. But if you look around, there are thousands upon thousands of tragic deaths in the United States each day. So, yes, some people do die tragic deaths. I'm not saying that that's not a connection or there may not be a curse type connection. I'm just saying that I personally haven't, seen enough to draw those two together.
Right.
I work with a lady who, in the 70s, they went to the Bell Witch, I think the cave, and she was in the Girl Scouts, and the Girl Scouts all went down there and camped out.
You ain't getting that today.
I don't know if that would happen nowadays, but they said, yeah, they all went down there. And she goes, Adams, Tennessee, yeah? And I go, yeah, that's right. And so they...
Well, and it's interesting, like, I guess hearing that aspect of the family being cursed, or, I mean, you hear that there's a lot of different old stories and stuff like that where families getting cursed. I mean, there's even like one big one that sticks out in my head is, and you may have heard of it too, the curse on the Von Erichs.
Oh yeah, the wrestlers, yeah.
The wrestlers?
Yeah. The curse on their family.
Yeah,
Theirs kind of does kind of line up though as in aligning, like it kind of would sound like something kind of wild.
Yeah, yeah, most of those family members, I don't think it happened with Fritz. I may be wrong about that, but I know when you start looking at like Kevin, Carrie, and some of the others, I mean, good Lord, there's so many of them. But yeah, I see what you're saying there.
That is
The
definitely.
Kennedys is another family that's supposedly cursed.
Yeah, they're doomed.
Yeah, and
So
you know,
why?
every
So you've had a lot of interactions and stuff with people, I'm sure, in the town and stuff. So, like I said earlier, so I had tried to talk to a few people in the town, and nobody really wants to talk about it. Well, just the few that I had ran into, they're just really hesitant and stand off on it. Maybe they just don't really like kind of outsiders coming in. They probably get bombarded with a lot of people though coming in and trying to bombard them with questions and just they may just want to be leave well enough alone kind of deal. But
yeah, and the same old
did you
question.
experience anyone that didn't want to talk to you or didn't really want to have?
Oh, all the time, constantly, constantly. That's just the way it goes. Um,
You
and
think
it's
it's just the
not.
story so enlightened there, or those people are just kind of really terrified to talk about it and bring it up? Maybe that they don't want a part of it.
Well, when it's not Adams itself so much as it is just, a lot of people who have grown up with a story, they've heard it all their lives, and they get tired of it after a while, tired of hearing about it. Then when you get to Adams, of course, you're going to have more people show up in terms of curiosity seekers, and the like, or paratourism, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times, and this happens constantly to me, everybody asks the same old questions. After a while, you get sick of it. I don't get sick of it, but a lot of people do get sick of it, after a while. And, as far as Adams, I mean, there's some people that won't talk with me at all about it, but they'll talk with everybody else about it. Then there are people that won't talk with me or anybody else about it, period. Then there are others who will openly discuss it. You can sit down with them, you can listen to what they have to say, you learn from them, you have an intelligent discussion with them, and it's a great thing. So, it's that's just how Adams is. And the same could be said of the Batesville, Mississippi area. And that is because years after the disturbances, some of the Bell children, including their daughter Betsy, moved there. And at some point after they moved there, people started telling Mississippi Bell Witch stories. And the Bell Witch legend is a really big deal there. And, I've met no telling how many Bell descendants, um, very few that ever said that they thought anybody was under a curse, but a lot of Bell descendants, and the ones down in, the area of Mississippi, descendants or people who know the story really well, not all of them will talk about it. Some of them will just cut you off immediately. Then there's some, like I say, will sit down and discuss it, and you learn a lot from them.
I work with a lady. She said she's from that area. She said her for one, she's pretty religious. Her for one, she's like won't even mention her name. Won't even mention the name. But they're scared to even not like they don't want to talk about it. They're just scared to talk about it. They don't want her to come after them. And then, like she said, she knew somebody that took a rock out of that cave, and they ended up taking it back. It's like bad stuff started happening in their house, like weird stuff. So they took the rock and took it back to the cave.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll point out, there are some descendants. I am not sure which line they're from, but they are direct descendants who have told me that it has been their understanding and their relatives' understanding is that they cannot discuss it because doing so would bring it back into their families' lives.
Yep.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. But let's talk about the rock in the cave. Yeah, people have gone to the cave on, I guess, many occasions and taken rocks, little rocks as souvenirs and stuff, and then only to return later telling the owners, you know, hey, take my rock back. This and this and this happened to me. Uh, as soon as I took a rock, I left this place and broke my leg, or something horrible happened. Please take the rock back. And I believe the owners have also had people try to mail them rocks. It's like you take a rock from the cave and it brings on a streak of either bad luck or very strange luck. And that's just so amazing, fascinating.
The same about Hawaii. Don't take a rock home from the island of Maui. They said there's people take a rock up. I'm not talking about a seashell, but actual rock, like volcanic rock or some of the local rocks.
That's correct. And there is a
They end up
legend.
mailing them back, like he's saying. They'll put them in an envelope. They'll put in a pack and mail them back because they sort of have
Yep.
bad juju.
Yep. I don't have my records in front of me, but there is a legend and a girl's name, or a queen, I think, or maybe a princess. There's a legend surrounding the whole Hawaii thing. And then there are, of course, you know, reports of people visiting or taking rocks as a result of coming there for the legend or something or another, you know, and having bad things happen to them. So yeah, that goes on there too. And you know, I mean, rocks have been there for what, millions of years, whether we're talking Bellwitch Cave or whether we're talking Hawaii. I mean, can you imagine all of the energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy, what have you, that those rocks have absorbed over the years? I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, rocks have a lot of energy in them.
There's
And then
there's
when
an old abandoned there's this old abandoned mansion that we go to once in a while, and I was there, and I had a rock. I thought somebody was messing with me. You know, this rock come flying in. I'm like, all right, who's throwing stuff? And they were in the other end of the house, and we've been up there probably half a dozen times between myself and the other team I'm involved with, Paranormal Connections team. We're up there, and we've had several rocks, and we've actually got them on video. The rocks, one come in and it bounced twice, and I know another gentleman was down on a trail at Red River Gorge that something threw a rock at him, which is also tied to cryptid or their Bigfoots and primates
Yep.
throw rocks. But he said the weird thing was after about the third time a rock came at them, they turned around and they saw rocks like in the middle of the air, like they froze in the air, and then they
Wow, that's a new
kept
one.
moving at them. And so I don't know if that's something to do with rocks, but I've had rocks thrown at me, and I don't know who was throwing them. I don't think a rock can throw itself, but could have something paranormal muster up enough energy to throw a rock? Because I've had my batteries.
You got to
drained
full
there,
on
too.
Swayze it. You've seen Ghost.
Yeah, like with the penny,
There,
the wall. Yeah.
and there is one story in the Bellwitch legend, one of the very older stories, where the children were walking to school one day and had rocks thrown at them.
Maybe I should have picked up that rock. I don't know. I left it.
I know. Now you got to kind of.
What's weird is
I kind of want to take a rock home now and
so
see what
this
happens.
house, there's like tile and there's plaster falling down, and, you know, and the roof's caving in and stuff. But this rock didn't match anything inside the house. It had to come from outside,
Right.
you know. And so it's like, okay, who threw the rock? We're, you know, as far as we know, there's nobody out there, you know, outside.
As far as you know.
As far as we know, I've got my
So
suspicions.
I get worried about that, man. People see you out there. They know, especially if it's a spot where a lot of people are going and checking out all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like when I was a teenager, if there was a house or something and there was a lot of people coming to, you know, paranormal hunt it or look, I would mess with them.
Yeah.
So that's always in my head too. When I go out, when outside interferences are coming in, I always
we
want to jump it. I just think somebody's messing with me.
We go to a lot of places. That's the only place we're getting rocks thrown at. But the other reports that was Red River Gorge where people's had rocks thrown and but when they saw the rocks like levitating, like it's like they were like in midair, stopped, and then all of a sudden they came at them, and I think that's when they took off running. Like,
well, we talk about like people messing with you, right?
Yeah.
So a few years back, I was actually doing some night fishing. Me and my brothers was out. We was at Shanty Hollow.
Ah.
You know, you go right down to that boat dock. You know, when you go down to Shanty Hollow, you got a little curve on that road, It's that strip, and you go down to the boat dock.
It's
A lot of people
straight
fish
down.
there.
Yeah.
Right. So we're there fishing one night, and the night was already kind of starting off really weird. You know, we're sitting there. This is probably about 1 in the morning, 1:30. So I hear this kind of like a, and I'm like, right?
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
Fox.
So I hear it again. Kind of get to looking around. A baby bobcat had jumped up on the rock and was eating at these chicken livers that we had sitting on the rock. Right?
Feeding the wildlife.
So I'm automatically like, whoa, mama's probably around.
Oh.
Right. So I'm like, maybe we should pack up, you know, and it was already getting weird. So when we first got there that night, we had ran in, and you know that bend that goes around the corner from the boat landing.
Yep.
It goes right around the corner there. These 3 girls just come out of nowhere, walk up on us from around that back corner, and they're like, oh yeah, we're camping out tonight. This is weird.
There's no campground there.
Right.
Oh.
So they go back to their little spot. We'd start fishing, whatever. And there's another point where I caught a catfish, pulled it up, and it had broken the line. So I caught it with my feet. So it's like horning into my shoe on the half side, right?
Yeah.
Then a couple seconds later, water moccasin slithers across my foot to get into the water. So I'm already feeling uneasy about this whole night. The girls, the bobcat, the snake, I'm horned. So we're going to start packing up. And my older brother was down from Pennsylvania visiting. He was one of my brothers that was with me that night. So it was my brother, my brother-in-law, and me had first went out there. So we're like, maybe we should pack up. Well, around the woods, hearing sticks breaking. Kind of weird. It sounded like, not cliche, but Blair Witch movie, right? Hearing these crackling. So I'm like, something's walking around in here. So I'm automatically, it's that bobcat. It's that bobcat mom.
Chicken livers. Come on.
And she's not happy. He's messing with this baby. So I'm like, all the juju's not feeling good. Let's get out of here. I feel like people's messing with us. So we leave. I get back to my house. I tell my other brother about it, Ben. I'm like, man, all this stuff was going on, you know, yada, yada, yada. So he's like, let's go back out there. When we pack the car up, we go back out there. Now, when we get on that Snake Wind Road,
the same night
that goes down. Yeah, same night. This is at 3:30 in the morning now. We go back out because he's like, I got to see it. So we go back out there. There was 4 perfect circles of fire on that trail right next to the road that somebody started messing with us. And this whole time, I'm like, I knew people was out there messing with us. Probably some meth jackers or whatever out there. Who knows who's out there doing what?
There was no flame or nothing. You didn't see.
It was fire. No, it was on fire.
Oh, it was on fire when you
4 circles of fire. Fireball on fire.
What?
On this trail going down there. We just turn around and leave. I'm like, I'm done messing out around here. So I always revert back to that because I'm like, every time we go on these, I'm hearing these outside things. I'm like, somebody's messing with me.
Always a prank. Very well could be. You ran into anything like that, Pat, out in your investigations, your research? People messing with you or outside influence?
Oh yeah, there's there's times things happen. As far as messing with an investigate, like setting fire or trying to scare me or any groups or anybody that I investigate with, I don't think I've really had that. Sometimes people will show up just because they see that something's going on and they don't know what it is and they want to know what I'm doing. Hey guys, what are you doing? Oh, wow. Is there really such thing as paranormal? How do I get involved? A lot of that, but not, specifically anybody, per se trying to mess with me. But, I've seen a lot of times where people get messed with, but not by humans, but where people will go into places on investigations, especially the ones who, will pay all this money for an investigation ticket to go to an investigation just so they can walk around telling everybody that they're a skeptic and that there's no such thing as paranormal. Those are the ones that seem to get it first. And when I mean get it, I'm talking about like getting the hair pulled, getting slapped on the leg or something like that. It's kind of strange, kind of funny, and kind of cool how that works. Have you ever seen that?
I've had something like one arm had static, like the hair standing up, but the other arm didn't. I was down in a tunnel. I was up at Rockville Hospital, Rockville, Indiana, up there, and I felt the
Yeah, and
static
I've
on
had.
one arm, and then it felt like a little hand, like something tapping my hand. And
Mhm.
then we were in Clarksville, and something come up behind me, and tugged my shirt. It's like sometimes people come up behind me, they don't want to mess with me when I'm filming. They'll go, "Hey," they tug my shirt. It was like a tug, and turn around, there's nobody there.
Oh yeah,
So I've
there's a
experienced
lot of
that.
that.
We've been on investigations and stuff, and I've actually asked things to happen like that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not trying to fully antagonize things, but I mean, I'm kind of trying to antagonize things because I want to see it. I want something to happen.
yeah. Like
Just
show us
because it
if you're
hasn't
here,
happened
show
to
us
me.
your presence. Show us your presence. Yeah, I get it. But I've done an awful lot of investigations, a lot of places for an awful long time, and I've seen a lot. But I've had people in investigations go physically ill. I've had people just go hysterical for no reason. I've had people on investigations being very happy, upbeat, friendly, the light of the investigation, even though we don't allow talking when the investigation's going on. But, upbeat, lively people just suddenly start crying their eyes out and, say they were suddenly overcome by a very strong bout of depression, just all of a sudden. I've seen people show different parts, like up under shirts and around the neck and arms, with fresh red scratch marks where something unseen had scratched them. Had people throw up all over the place. I had somebody put a quarter on his leg one time, a skeptic, and it, like, I think almost burnt a hole right through his leg. Um, I see a lot of things, on investigations where, I can't say all of it is a result of being messed with by paranormal entities, but, because there's always, the power of suggestion. You're in a scary situation or a place you're scary about, your anxiety, your stress is high. It's easy for somebody to panic or, it boil over and become physical illness or something like that. But I've definitely seen some very strange things happen, especially when the happy person suddenly just rolls over or falls down on the floor and starts crying their eyes out. That is probably the strangest. And I've seen that quite a few times over the years.
I've seen that once. I've seen somebody get like that. Then we've had Cammy. She's got sick in her stomach twice. And then Octagon Hall. I got down there, and Franklin went down there behind the cemetery, and all of a sudden I just got pissed off. I just got mad. Just
Yeah, I
all of a
remember you
sudden
saying you
pissed
was
off.
mad.
And then our other team came down one time, and our other leader, EJ, he's usually really happy and laid back. He all of a sudden got angry down there. And once he got outside, I think he was a little better. But it was just, I tried to tell him, I said, I think it's affecting you. I think this place affected you because I got angry,
Yeah,
and then he got angry, and I don't usually get angry about anything. So it was.
Definitely things can affect you and stuff, and it puts you in that kind of place. Well, hey, we are reeling up to be about out of time, Pat. So real quick, why don't you let us know where, if anybody's interested, they want to get that, they can kind of get those books that you got out. I'm interested. I'd like to get them and check those out.
Okay. First of all, the website for my research or some of my research is www.bellwitch.org. As far as the books, the Bell Witch, the full account, and Ghostly Cries from Dixie, you can get those from most any online retailer and probably about half of your traditional brick and mortar retailers, a little more than half when it's around Halloween time. So that's where the books are. And there's also a page for each of my books on Facebook, as well as an author page for me as well on Facebook.
All right, guys, and
And
we'll
other
post those links
platforms.
too. Gotcha. And we will post those links too on our site so you guys can have that info
I
in
got
case you want to
one,
check those out.
One more thing. Can you pull up the trivia question? We've had a trivia question for 2 weeks, and I keep forgetting to give the answer. You have to roll up the. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. One more. Right there where it says trivia. Hit that. There's a trivia question. 1967, Brushy Creek, famous footage, Patty. What were the names of the two filmmakers? Go ahead and stop that.
So what were the two filmmakers for the famous Patty footage? Fill the next one up. Patty? Patty? Right. Oh, there you go. There's the famous picture. Patty. Okay. I'm going to give the answer.
Got 1 minute.
Click off on that. Okay. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. That's the answer. That's who the famous.
Did you say Robert Patterson?
Roger Patterson. And Bob Gimlin.
I thought you said Robert Patterson. I was going to say the Twilight guy.
And thanks for being on, Pat. And on this Father's Day, having a podcast with us, Supernatural Sunday.
Okay, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. We would definitely like to talk to you again, especially you said that info that you're working on and stuff that you're going to be working on over the next year or so. So definitely get back with us. Keep us posted on that.
Tune back with us next week. Come on.
Okay, thank you.